Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Debate Hub. I am here. I am Chesh, your master debater. You will notice my name tag is not showing up. I'll get that fixed as we go. Welcome, Landon. It's good to see you. It's been a while since it's
Hello.
just been me and you. How are you? Your art is lovely in your
Yeah,
background.
good. Oh, well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone and latitude. This particular artwork was secured to me via my parents, who lived a number of years in the People's Republic of China. It was painted by a master painter who the painting was due to be given to a awful gentleman known as Li Peng. um, who was considered one of the masterminds of the massacre at Tiananmen Square.
Mm.
And yes, CCP, there is a massacre. And if you go on to a particular certain um, so-called natural language model and ask it about Tiananmen Square, you will get CCP shill responses. But it's a very nice painting. It's one of those paintings. You can see there's stuff up there. It's one of those paintings that you keep finding details. The
Oh,
main
yeah.
principal thing is there's a
I love
gentleman
those.
down here who is looking up at a monastery. This is actually a painting of a monastery, a Buddhist. I think it's a Buddhist monastery, a famous thing there. And there are details and things here that I still discover, even though this has been with me for many years. But since my parents, I mentioned I wanted something dealing with the moon. There's a moon up there. Look at the moon and so forth.
Go figure,
The
the
master artist
astronomer.
decided to give it to me rather than to Li Peng, because, on contrary to what that particular chat model will tell you, there was violence perpetrated by the Chinese Communist Party across China, including places like Chengdu that my parents were living in. And so the artist in protest gave this to me. But I will also say,
Landon's got the
uh,
best stories. This man just drops that his parents lived through Tiananmen Square and he has a famous painting that was supposed to go to somebody who would be very upset if he found out.
yes. But I will say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone, latitude, and tariff status. Um, and sorry, trademark Canada. By the way, a note to Americans. Um, when you apologize, do not demand that your apology be accepted. Right? You should give an apology because you want to apologize. The people on the other side are in no obligation to accept your apology. And if they reject your apology, accept that rather than become huffy.
That's not an excuse to keep doing it. To be like, never mind, I'm gonna keep being a dick. Um, Today we are
Yes,
here. Landon, you have a little bit of a history in politics, and I know we've talked about this on shows before, but I thought it was a good time to do like sort of a how to communicate with your local and federal and larger and smaller municipal
sure.
um people who are supposed to work for you, your politicians,
Yeah,
the people who are
yeah,
supposed to be doing your bidding as your representatives. America is in a really weird time, and I think a lot of Americans, and we do have a lot of American listeners, are struggling with feeling like they have no power and feeling like they don't know what to do or how to do it, even if they do have an idea of what they do want.
mm,
So I thought it would be helpful to do something a little bit more positive and talk about how do you do that. Now, this is going to be a little bit focused to North America, so this will likely apply to most Canadians as well. However, a lot of what I think we're going to talk about today will be applicable in other places around the world. We're just going to be a little bit more heavily focused on North America.
sure.
So if you are sadly, part of Brexit, these things may still be applicable to you, but things might need to be a little bit tweaked depending on where you live. So just get that out of the
Yeah.
way. But Landon, why don't you
And
give
yet,
people a little
there
bit?
are certain governments
Yeah,
for which communicating is not advisable.
right,
Um,
right.
so, but in general, this is pretty much there. By the way, I am in honor of sanctions drinking this here. It's from
Glass house.
a British Columbia a winery called Glass House, for which I am reminded I probably shouldn't throw stones, given where I'm living. Just across the, but it's just across the way, just right over there, across which currently is called Trudeau's Ditch. Um, it's a really nice Pinot Grigio there, and they even have the instead of cork they even have a glass stopper. So these
Oh,
wine
that's
bottles
nice.
are useful for other things, like you put in soap in and other things like that. It's not
Yeah,
soap; it actually
soap.
has nice wine
I've got
there.
I'm
So
drinking Sleeman's. So for anybody who
ah
doesn't know, this is a Canadian beer. It's got a beaver on it. It's got a leaf and a beaver. It's hard to see,
ah,
but it's even
is
got
it
a
a correct
beaver. It's
leaf?
got its logo on the inside of the cap.
Oh, and is it a correct leaf or is it a because
I don't
one
think
thing
it's
I've
I don't think
seen
it's
is that there's a
supposed to be a maple leaf, but I think it's not supposed to be like the Canadian maple leaf. It is supposed to be a
yeah.
maple leaf, but it's not supposed to be the
Yeah, it looks like more like the
flag leaf.
Norwegian
Yeah.
maple leaf, which Norwegian maple leaves are fine. They're just not the official Canadian maple leaf there.
But
But as yes,
where can you give us maybe a little bit of a background, because I mentioned that you had been in politics a little bit. Again, you don't have to be too specific because I know certain private information is private, obviously, but can you
no.
give us a little bit of something just for context?
Well, I will say that I was an elected official, and you don't get to be an elected official anonymously. You are public. So I was a member of the Sunnyvale Charter Review Committee. I was part of the became appointed to the library board of Sunnyvale. I became the vice chair of the library board. I was became part of the Sunnyvale Charter Review Commission. I was then elected to the Sunnyvale City Council and served on a number of committees there. The committee, the council or parliament, um, just like in Canada, your opening maiden speech, you're supposed to be given a little bit of latitude. Um, and so they're supposed to help you through the process. It's supposed to be nice. So for my first act, I decided that the Sunnyvale should register a domain and establish a process by which you could email City Hall. And this was considered quite radical. In fact, I had to kind of explain to members of Parliament what email was. We're talking about, by the way, Sunnyvale's in the heart of Silicon Valley, so this is like relatively new. But I did say, this is pertinent to this thing, there will come a time when people say, "What do you mean you couldn't email your City Hall?"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was a bit of
I mean,
a
it's nice
foretaste
that you
for
can do that. I do feel like at this current junction in time that emailing feels too passive.
hmm, yes,
I
and we will
think
talk
it's
about that.
easier to ignore than like I feel like the American local governments and even upper governments and the Canadian local governments and upper governments need to look like the Dursley house after they tried to ignore all of the letters for Harry to go to Hogwarts.
Yes, and I want to say so. Then I sort of became vice mayor and mayor pro tem. I also was
Vice
one of those few
Mayor of
people that actually
Landon.
and I was one of those few people that also drafted articles of impeachment, voted on impeachment, secured a majority vote to impeach, then went to do the investigatory things where we found even more than the articles of impeachment had, held what would be the Senate trial or the legislative trial, and got a conviction and removed said person. Um, said person, I apologize, but the said person is hereby referred to as the bitch. And the bitch was impeached, convicted, and removed for a good cause. That being said, and speaking Glass House, I was one of those who originally elevated that said bitch to the position. And I was one of those, but I had one of those rare moments where I had both the full authority and the full responsibility and the full capability to do something about it. That's a rare case.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about you as a private citizen, maybe trying to get something done. One of the things in particular, I think, to realize is that you are one of several people. You do not get to get your way, nor should you, right? If you are one of n, where n's a large number, you need to, and I think this is the thing that sometimes some people, when they're trying to communicate with government, and they say they don't listen to it, sometimes I think they mean they didn't do what I wanted them to do.
Right.
Now, the reason why you might not get your way may be severalfold, but I would say having served in there, and then and as a local official, you then work also with county and state, and or you say that would be equivalent of provincial, and then national government people. You work up the chain, and particularly when I was an elected official, I advocated for my community. As part of why I figured my job to do, and became very familiar with people at other levels of government, and actually good friends there, because I had a really skilled political advisor who taught me how to communicate effectively. Now, by the way, the text there is showing up is sort of encrypted. I wonder why it looks like it
might be a little bit hard for you to read. It's just a point from the chat that says, from Alex, that says your average representative represents over 700,000 people. If a third of their constituents sent a letter voicing the same complaint at the same time, that'd be a fuck ton of mail.
Yes.
Yes,
and I
would.
I represented 150,000 people. And one of the things in particular that's interesting is that you have to distinguish between people who voted for you,
yes,
people who registered to vote, people who live in your community, but they don't bother to register to vote, or they can't register to vote, and people that are traveling through your community, right? You have this sort of hierarchy of needs. So if you are involved in the government of a city, while the voters may give you a mandate, someone traveling through your community for various reasons has also certain needs and requirements that you need to pay attention to. So you have this larger set of constituency. But again, I guess the question now is, why should you communicate with your government? And it's about there, but why, right? Why do you think? Why?
Is there a point? Is there value?
Yes, as well. And I think the answer is yes. One of the things you'll find if you begin to communicate effectively is that you will be one of the rare few that actually communicate. I learned early on that an angry crowd down at City Hall tended to be oftentimes with a very small minority,
right,
of people.
It's about recognizing motivation.
Yes. And because most people don't come down to protest something they like. Right. Most people who don't care don't get involved. So you have to understand the set there. So, but still, why should you communicate? Well, the answer is if you don't communicate effectively with your representatives, how are they have a much harder time guessing as to what's needs. Now, they should be involved in the community and understand issues, but they need
to be doing outreach. Yes, it's not a one-way street, but everybody should be trying.
Yes. So when I campaign, because the way our city worked at the time, a city council member was city council member for the entire city of 150,000. So I had 150,000 constituents, and I would walk the entire city. I would knock on every door of a voter who had voted in 3 out of the 4 last elections. And it was very helpful, that communication. It was very, very labor intensive. I mean, you got tens of thousands of doors.
Yeah.
And but by the time it came around to candidate debates, I had already heard many of the issues time and time again, and had a way of communicating back, because I had heard, right, what people had. And when I became when I first elected, one of the things I did early on was I came to City Hall with a whole pile of notes of things. And there are little things like, so and so lady saying, by the way, I keep having trouble trying to prevent people from tracking mud into my house, because out there the drain is stopped and it's a pile of mud and right. So little things like that. And so I would go to the city manager and say, hey, can we fix this? Can you fix this? And the city went through and fixed lots and lots of things, and made a number of people quite happy that something actually had been done. That being said, I couldn't be everywhere, and I couldn't spend my entire time, because I also was working full time. So people needed to communicate back to me. And what I found was that a number of people had various levels of ability to communicate effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I decided early on was that I would, if I had met, a group wanted to meet with me about some position, I felt one of my jobs was to help them understand how to communicate effectively. That here, a typical thing might be this: you got a bunch of neighbors. Let's say they're upset about a potential housing development in their neighborhood, and so they go and get a petition, they sign a whole bunch of signatures saying, this is going to show them, right? And they come to the meeting. They're angry, they're concerned, they're upset, and they may not be on their best behavior. As a result, they may be frustrated. And so I, as an elected official, had to be patient with an angry crowd,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's something we're seeing. There's a lot going on with American politics, obviously. And the town halls that are happening, there's been a lot of news coming out of these town halls that are almost starting here. And it's even hard to say they're devolving very far, of just people yelling at their representatives because the representatives are feeding them platitudes and they don't want to hear it. And I don't
Yes.
I don't think those people are in the wrong, but are they effective? Because what's happened now is the town halls are just not happening.
Yes. If you are, I mean, just from
As cathartic as it
personal
is to
standpoint,
watch all these Republicans yell at Republicans, which I, to be clear, very, very thoroughly enjoy. I absolutely love watching this, and I am here for it. I don't know if it's
those that live in glass houses, yes.
I don't know if it's effective.
Yes, and yeah, cathartic is there, and I'll tell you
feels
that
good.
there were times when I had to get protection.
Oh yes.
I would say one of the worst cases. I won't mention the church. I won't mention the Canadian city, but if I said the name, you'd probably say, "Oh yeah, I understand."
Yeah, okay, noted.
Who did a number of things that are more than illegal, let's say. And it was because I was the key vote in approving a private library being attached to a synagogue.
Oh yeah.
And the people who were involved with this church were blatant anti-Semites. I'm not talking about the ones that try to be slightly subtle.
Right.
And I blew them, allegedly speaking, back out the door of
You
the
heard
city
that?
hall.
Landon blew their back out.
Blew them back out the doors of the city hall with my, I did, again, this is the thing, I did make sure they had the right to be heard. In fact, in some cases with
Sure.
such people, you
Yeah.
want them to be heard. We had a
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like
we had
watching
an
that
odd.
one
Go ahead.
representative had a guy come up and say that the Clintons are stealing the election. They're stealing the election. They've stolen it. Blah, blah. And they just let him talk, and then he just had to awkwardly walk away. And then they were like, anyway,
Yes, yes.
the Biden administration. Blah, blah, blah.
And by the way, we will get to some practical tips, but I
Mhm.
want to give you some of these stories to give for their. Because there were times where I had to have police protection
Yeah.
because people's anger and frustration was at such a high level
Yes.
that they were a potential threat. And that's a sad thing, right? Now, the problem is that I found is that a lot of people have a difficult time understanding what level of government does what.
Yes. Yes, there
So
are a
I,
lot,
as
even like in Canada, that happens too. A lot of people are angry at the federal government over COVID stuff, or angry at the federal government about hospitals without realizing that that's a provincial thing. So like
yes,
if you're frustrated about hospital wait times in Ontario, for example, that's Doug Ford's fault, not the liberal federal government's fault.
the Ford family is such a special group.
I don't. I
Now,
don't. I
I
don't.
said that as being
Oh
someone who lives in a glass house with some special
I will
people.
throw a rock through my glass window to hit their glass house. I don't even give a fuck. Uh,
But again, one of the things in particular, the reason why these stories are applicable is that when you're
yes.
that frustrated, um, your ability to communicate and be heard is harder. In fact, it gives elected officials some excuses they insulate themselves.
Yes.
So one of the things I would say is that when you're communicating with government, try to be calm and polite, even if they don't deserve that.
I will point to Trudeau's address. Trudeau's press release from
Hmm?
Monday was
Hmm?
so good and so on point at calling shit out for
Hmm.
what it is in the most polite way possible, to the point
Yes.
that I don't even think most Americans noticed that Trudeau called Donald Trump dumb to his face twice in a row. Like, just boom, boom. You're an idiot.
Yeah. And Trudeau comes from a family of very skilled politicians.
Yeah, he grew up with it.
And he learned, right? And he's really skilled. I would say he hasn't always practiced at the level,
Sure.
but he did it.
He's
I
not
did see
perfect.
that
Yeah.
conference, and like no one is, right? But that's thing. So I can say that what I did at least was when meeting with a group, would say that I'm here to try to help you present an effective case.
I yeah, I think that there
In a way, I would,
is
even if I disagreed with what they were doing.
I just think that there is I think having a degree of sophistication lends more credence to what you're saying, particularly when you're dealing with a dumb fuck asshole. So,
Yes.
if, for example, you are dealing with a Doug Ford type, if, for example, you're dealing with a Donald type, they are loud and angry and boisterous. And do you have any idea how quickly Donald Trump crumpled when talking to Macron? Like Macron,
Yes.
just there, like no. Well, okay,
Well,
actually,
if you look at it and look at his body language,
yes,
look at the
it
body
all
language.
matters. So having the level of manners and having this level of sophistication automatically makes you seem like you are above the person you are talking to. And particularly
Yeah.
if this person is
By the
just
way,
a dumb, loud, angry
notice,
idiot.
notice. Short, tall person above me, right? I figured
After you
it
tilting
was
your
that.
camera like crazy, sure, yeah, all right.
All right.
But
Um,
I think there's credence to that. I think that there's like a legitimate thing to be said about a not it's not saying don't be angry, and it's not saying you can yell, that's fine, but if you want to be effective, you're better off to put yourself in a position of power, and one of the ways you can do that is by using sophisticated approaches and languages in this
Yeah.
calm tone. Trudeau in his last press conference was talking to Donald Trump like he was a 3-year-old. Like he was a
Yes.
parent scolding a child.
Yeah.
Like, and it's
Well,
mwah.
yes. Now look also at Macron, right?
Yes.
When the Orange Man was starting to say things that some people consider to be stupid, he actually put his hand on his arm and sort of
Yeah.
said, as a kid, and say, no, no, no.
Yeah. Yeah,
You don't do
exactly.
that, right? And knew how to shut him down. Ron is a very skilled orator and understands body language very, very well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so is Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
Formidable, but that's a different story. Back to the
Hey, listen, you can use your
I
powers
always,
for good or for evil. These are just an acknowledgement of the tools that
yeah,
are at people's disposals.
but I always, I always tried to, say I'm meeting with you to help you, prior to, let's say, a city hall hearing, put forward your best case.
Yeah.
And they'd spend, like, for example, a common thing, they spend time saying, we're going to collect all these petitions, all these signatures, and they'll have to listen to us. And I'll say, well, sadly, no. That's not, I said, you want to get their attention?
Yes.
Don't deliver signatures. Deliver photocopies of registered voters. Because I said, in City Hall,
Yeah.
a registered voter is the queen of the realm. And if you come in and say, here are 100 new voters in this area who registered who are concerned about this issue.
Right.
Then people said, okay, right? A bunch of e-petition signers have less effect than someone showing intent.
There's no tactile value. It's like the emails. You can see a big number of emails in your email box in 2 clicks and they're all gone. Like, it does not have this visceral, as in, like, here's a letter, you have to open it and see what's inside. Here's a letter, you have to open it and see what's inside. Here's a letter, you have to open it and see what's inside. You have to physically engage with something like a physical letter. You have to physically engage with, here's a stack of paper that you need to, like, flip through. Even if you're flipping through it quickly, that's going to show you this stack of, like, 2,000, 5,000 registered voters talking about an issue with a written up little booklet of, like, here's what the concern is, here's the solutions we want to see, is so much more just viscerally impactful.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point.
But how do you word the letters? If you're going to send a letter, how do you word it in a way that means that your government is going to be able to understand what you're saying? Because if you just send a letter that's like, fuck you, I hate you, kill yourself, like, that doesn't mean anything.
Yes, and also sometimes when we get, I get these letters and they're ones that even triple underline stuff. You look at the letter and you
re-underline
and you say, what is the issue they're mad about? I can tell they're mad.
Yes.
But does anyone have any idea what it is they're upset about?
Right.
I would also use staff and people say,
like a YouTube comment.
Guess?
If your YouTube comment just says this video sucks, it's like, okay. But I can't do anything.
Even
with
though
that.
The video might suck, but if you said your sound was so low and I turned up my volume as high as I could and I still couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
And it sucked.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. The first part is there. The second part is just carry
constructive,
useful information.
Yeah.
And so it was a case. That was be a case. So sometimes I would be able to, go to, like, the staff secretary and say, so here's a constituent who's unhappy. Do you recall ever? Oh yes, that's so and so. He's upset about the Safeway delivery trucks banging loud things. Okay, you have to kind of, and that, and I tell you, that's someone who was rare, who tried to get the effort to see there. Many times, such a letter is not effective, other than to
Right.
say someone's upset. So understand first of all, if you're let's talking about you're talking about your member of parliament, your member of Congress,
Yes.
or their or having even larger, or your governor or your premier as a larger set. Understand that your first job in communicating to realize is that they themselves may rarely be the one that reads your note.
Right.
As an elected official, I did get notes to the president or to the governor or to a senator, but that was after a long, and I'll explain, a long established communication process. Hint, one of the best ways to get an elected official to do something for you is to do something for them for which they owe you a favor.
Right.
I'll give you an example. So I received a call from a lady who at City Hall who wanted to know if she shut off her utilities before the end of the month, could she get a credit back on the bills she paid? And I was thinking, like, oh, you're moving? No. She said, I turned 100 and my Social Security ran out.
So the problem isn't really the electricity bill. The problem is you have Social Security has run out for this very, very elderly woman, has no way of getting money,
Yeah.
so therefore
Now,
can't
but
pay
what the
that
problem is that
money.
I'm an elected official. This is the federal thing. And by the way, your Social Security doesn't run out.
Right.
It was a case where this lady was scammed and someone stole her
Right.
Social Security or pension, right?
Mm.
And so through connections there, I got while on staff talking to the lady trying to get her more extend stuff, we found out who her landlord was. I also had an operative go to find a certain senator, staff member
Yeah.
who kind of explained about it, who got the senator out of a committee hearing, stopped committee hearing, to come in on the telephone, because it turned out that U.S. senators have this fund. And she came in and said, "Ma'am, I'm your senator." She was Senator Boxer, and she was running for election that year.
That's one of the things that people need to understand. If you can present your case in a way that is going to make that senator look good, they are going to eat it up. They want to help you if they can,
Absolutely.
especially if they can use it as a talking point.
Yeah, and so we're talking about a senator who was in a Senate hearing,
Mm-hmm.
who interrupted her thing to go and leave to come in and talk, and she said, "Ma'am, I understand that staff has already been in contact with your landlord, and we have asked them not to evict you. Senators have a fund where we can prepay lost Social Security, and that fund, and so your landlord knows you have the funds coming and has
Yes.
promised not to evict you. And if I could deliver the check to you
With press.
with of course, right? And so she went in the whole thing and presented this thing, and the lady didn't have to leave. And in fact, we got some assistance. She wasn't having to go on eating dog food. She could actually have other things that go on. No. And the notion of, no, you don't, your pension doesn't run out when you turn 100.
Right.
Now this lady refused to believe the senator did anything and said, well, it's that good guy Landon down at City Hall.
Sure.
And when ran for election, she, in her walker at 101, walked 5 block, knocked every house and said, "I want you to vote for this young man," right?
Yeah.
Because of da. And of course, the senator was very grateful
Right.
for that press opportunity. And so the best way to get
It is
to
literally
do, by
rubbing
doing a
elbows,
favor.
but doing it the right way. Yeah.
Yes, doing a favor such that they owe you more. Now, so you might say, well, back here. Here's a thing: is when you're talking with an elected official or communicating, most likely you will be communicating with a staff member. So first of all, realize you're not talking to the president. You're talking to someone in the mailroom, right?
Yeah.
You're not talking to the prime minister. You're talking to one of the staff members.
Yeah.
They have a job,
Yes.
and particularly if of someone that has thousands or millions of constituents, they have a job to get through all this stuff, all this communication, to try to
Condense it
summarize it
down. Yeah.
for the daily or the weekly, however often, briefing.
Yeah.
This is a very key point. When you're communicating, your first priority is to make it easy for the person receiving your correspondence to understand what your issue is quickly.
Yeah.
Right? Because they can't spend, if you hand them
They don't have
a
time to
40
decipher it.
page
Yeah.
letter with stuff, I'm going to say, no, they can't, because
Think
they
in
have.
like number of characters. Think in like no more than 400 characters.
I had a manager
One
who very, very,
page, 2 paragraphs at best.
yes,
Point form
and you start
notes.
off. It's a TLDR, as hackers call it, but basically you start off with a note saying executive summary,
Yeah.
and you put in there one sentence, maybe two,
Yep.
of the issue.
Yeah. So
And
let's take for example. Let's
once,
give an example of an issue. If I
sure,
want Doug Ford and I want my federal government, which are on opposing sides, to
mm-hmm.
implement more trains in Canada. I want more public transit that is widely available via trains. What does
Yeah.
my executive order or my executive concern sound like?
And let's we'll do this on a fly, but say, Premier
Subject to
Ford,
revision.
I am concerned about the lack of trains as part of our public transit, um, uh, public transit services.
Accessibility.
Yes, and so you
That's
that would
your
be a
line.
very simple.
That's your line. I'm
Yeah.
concerned about trains, a lack of trains within our public transit accessibility. Boom, done. That's your first line.
So executive summary is
Summary,
that. Now the
TLDR,
next thing
trains, please.
is yeah. Now the next thing is a little bit of politeness saying recommended action. Okay, you're concerned. If that's all you communicate, they say, okay, this person's concerned, right?
Right.
Do you have a specific recommended action?
Right.
Consider. So let's say, for example, there is a train line in your local region that needs to be serviced. I don't know.
Well, so I would use, let's say, like right now, there's a train between Guelph and Toronto. I don't live in Guelph anymore, so if I want to get to Toronto, I have to like find a way to get to Guelph to get to Toronto. And getting to Guelph is a giant pain in my fucking ass. So if there's a train line that goes through the tri-state area that I live in, then and then also has access to Guelph, we now have Waterloo, Kitchener, Cambridge all connected via train, which can then train to Guelph, which could then train to Toronto.
Okay, so maybe a recommended action is to extend train services in the region beyond Guelph to locations such as
the tri-state, yeah. Because the tri-states actually have a really, really, really good bus system between the three of them. But Guelph opted out of the bus system when the municipalities got together to make the bus system. So the train going to Toronto in Guelph is great, but nobody in the tri-state area, because they're not part of our bus system, we can't get there very easily.
Yes. And so you might even say in your recommended action, send trains from Guelph into the tri-state area in order to overcome,
a barrier,
transit deficiencies, transit barriers that are present in Guelph. Right? You're not trying to place a BAME, but see, now the person reads it, sees the one sentence that you are concerned about, the type of modal multimodal transport.
Alex has a really good point too.
Province.
Yeah, a really good line that I think can be like workshopped into this. That says the current infrastructure is inadequate for the demands of passenger rail.
Very good, because here and points to you, Alex, because here you're suggesting it's not my problem, it is their constituents' problem.
It's an everyone problem. I have a
Because if you
concern
sit there and
about
say,
this. This is a potential solution, and the current rail infrastructure is inadequate for the demands of passenger rail. And now you've got like a quick little 3-point summary. And if you tag onto that a bunch of voters who are either sending the same mail, sending the same message, or you can print out all of these people who have signed on to this that are voters, that are like registered voters who will be like, yes, 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 yes. You can print all of that out, and now suddenly you have one little page summary on the top, and then a bunch of here's why you should do it because the voters want you to do it.
No, maybe, and so this thing that maybe you have some document from the advocates for better Canadian rail that have a study that talks about, the tri-state area.
You can talk about the really, really bad
So,
traffic where they have tried to fix it by adding more lanes to the highway, and adding more lanes to the highway has not helped and doesn't reduce our carbon footprint. So you can say, here are some things that have been attempted that are, though appreciated, have not worked and are problematic in this way. Here's this other option.
Now the problem is if you put all that useful information into your letter, you have turned it from some staffer who could, within 20 seconds, understand what the issue is, to something that they kind of glance over and say, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah.
The point is that you have to set this up to enable the conversation and then let them have the conversation. Or when they bring it to a town hall, that's when you bring all this information to the table. You go up there and you say, hey, listen, XYZ 789, therefore trains.
Yes. And so again, our letter is a business type letter, right? It has, to Honorable Doug Ford, blah, 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 Premier, and it has your address as well, including your cute little postal code thing. And
why aren't postal codes and areas codes the same thing? I don't know.
I much prefer numeric zip codes myself, but that's a tradition. I understand my good Scottish family friends and out of Edinburgh love their letter number system. It's a tradition. But okay. We're back to this letter, right? So it's you have your address up here, right, up on this side. There to the Honorable before blah blah blah. You're addressing to them, and you have your executive summary. You say executive summary. Your one line.
Yeah.
Recommend action. Your, let's say, one line or maybe two, and then you say thank you very much. Please see the attached document for additional details.
Yes, exactly.
And that's when you take the document from the Friends of the Canadian Rail rec study, right?
That's when you call Manya in and have her write 2,000 words.
And by the way, that's a thing you can do, is to reach out to an organization and say, I'm about ready to write a letter to the Premier, to the Governor, blah, blah, blah. Do you have some information?
Yeah.
Right? So again, you have taken something, a message, which takes maybe 10 seconds for the staffer to understand.
Yeah.
They also get a picture, say you're articulate, you're respectful of their time, you have a definite one topic and one recommendation, right?
Hello, intern working in the mailroom. I see you. I appreciate you. Here's the and then you put in your executive. Here's my TLDR.
Yeah, and so I've seen this happen, right? I've been in Congress members' staff, meetings. I've been in senator staff meetings, and the staff member comes in, and these aides and so forth are trying to say, here's what your institutions are saying, right? Guess what? The person whose job is to summarize, say, by the way, Senator, Premier, there is a concern about rail that was raised by some of your constituents, right?
Yeah.
And the printer might say, oh, well, that's interesting. Why don't you look into it and get back to me?
Right. And
Guess what? They did this because now they don't have to do hours of research. You have supplied them
yeah.
a coherent
And if
document.
you've given them your email and address, they can contact you back asking clarifying
Yes,
questions, which
yes.
they can and
And
will
so,
do. It won't be Doug Ford contacting you. It's
no,
not going to be Mitch McConnell isn't going to fucking send you an email.
no.
It's going to be whoever, like, the youngest, lowest ranker on the person who's about to have their job cut in America is going to be the one that you're talking to.
Yeah. And I say, I have written federal law and federal regulations effectively because I communicated with a congressional staff member
Yeah.
on that same thing. Who I am, honorable so and so, executive summary, very clear, concise statement, recommended action, very clear, concise statement. Thank you very much. For additional details, please attach. And the attached turned into federal regulation. It had to do with the, well, anyway, the details are not important. But this is, again, you see what you've done is you have made it very efficient and effective
Yeah.
for the staff member understanding to understand. And
And polite.
the other people that just
It's
write,
nonpartisan.
yes.
You're not adding in any
And
political, like, right leaning
yeah,
or left leaning. What you're doing is, see, here's the thing, and I think people need to keep this in mind, and I've been reminding myself regularly. Just because I didn't vote for Doug Ford doesn't mean he doesn't represent me. He represents me right
correct.
now, whether I fucking like it or not. So I need to tell him what I want him to do as my representative, whether I voted for him or not. So if
Yeah.
you are a more liberal leaning person in Ontario, and Doug Ford is like this pushover bully kind of person. He's loud, he's obnoxious, but ultimately he just wants to be liked by everybody. And so, because he wants to be liked by everybody, if you convince him that it's gonna make him look good to everybody, you can talk this motherfucker into anything.
Yes, and so notice what happened with Alex's line where we turned the issue into a not my problem. I want you
yes.
to fix me. It
Yeah.
is we have an issue.
Yeah.
Here's a recommendation, and for further details, please see attached document.
Yeah.
Um, and so what will happen is that aide will be able to highlight that because it's
Yes.
one, they know it's articulate, and if they're asked to fill follow-up, they already know they've got the follow-up that you
Right.
supplied.
Which makes
So that
them
when
look good. That makes the staffer look good. Again, it's greasing elbows. It's greasing the
and,
wheels.
and guess what? When the aides recognize your next message coming through in another issue,
Mm-hmm.
they pay attention. Say, oh, here's Chesh. She is very efficient in her time, and let's see what she has to say now. Literally,
Right.
that becomes they're doing the thing, oh, blah, 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 and they will say,
You get
oh, yeah, so and
recognized.
so.
Yeah.
Right? Now, so again, who you are, you want them to be able to communicate with you, your name, your address,
Yeah.
your telephone number. That's why you want to be polite. Who they are as an address, executive summary, one or two sentences at most, recommend action, one or two bullet points at most. Thank you very much. See attached information for details, right? And it becomes a
Yeah.
cover letter to something.
Yeah.
And understand that doesn't mean it will be done.
You have
It
to
doesn't
understand that
mean,
whatever you're telling them, you're likely not going to see within the next 5 years minimum. Like, minimum will you see movement
yeah,
on it. But
yeah.
if you can, the point is to get them talking. You have to think long term, not short term results.
Yes. And I was, for example, I was in a town hall of a Congress member where somebody asked something about export, cryptography and government. And the Congress member actually came in and said, by the way, we have in the audience, Honorable Landon, who very articulately communicated with my staff, and we made very substantial changes to the federal regulations on exporting of cryptography, and
Yeah,
here's why it matters. Da, 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 and went through
right.
the thing, right? And of course, she was doing what she did best, which is doing a favor for me. So now I owe her,
Right. It's
so on and so forth. But
politics. It's politics.
Yes, yes. So doing someone a favor such that they owe you more, right?
I
Is a
have a
good way
personal
to
concern
keep
that
the
our
positive. Yes.
LCBO and our bars are not able to sell liquor before 11 a.m. This is a holdover from old school religious bullshit. I work night shift, I want this gone. The rest of night shift, who are voters, also want to be able to get off work and have a beer. It will make you so much money.
Yes. So let's consider that issue, right?
Wait, before we do
So
that,
obviously
we
you
need to go in. We
okay.
are also going to have a Q&A. So we're going to go through this one. We're going to do a Q&A, but I'm going to hit the thing, give us a little 2 minute just to make it easier for me to edit
By
after
all
the
right.
fact. So, thank you for joining us. Landon's links will be in the description down below. Thank you so much, Landon, because I want to be able to cut this after the fact. So,
Sure.
if you're watching this later, you might have missed the part that comes after this, and subscribe, and we're like 300 subscribers away from monetization, so help us out with that. Thank you so much for joining us. I greatly appreciate it. This has been Debate Hub. Say goodbye, Landon.
Bye, Landon. Oh,
Bye.
no, bye to me. Bye to you. Bye to some people. Bye everywhere.
See you in a
I
minute.
know. Bye, Canadian. BUY.